Welcome to Love Lies Chronicles.
You can usually tell when a marriage changes, but you don't always know exactly when it happens. Not until later. Not until you're lying awake at night, replaying every word, every glance, wondering which moment was the one that mattered. For me, it wasn't the first time she ordered takeout 3 nights in a row. It wasn't when she started coming to bed fully dressed in sweatpants and a hoodie, claiming she was cold. It wasn't even when she stopped saying good morning. It was the moment she stood in front of me, crossed her arms, and said coldly, "I'm not here to serve you." 7 words. That's all it took. We'd been married for 11 years. I'm not going to say they were all perfect. No relationship is, but we had something solid. Or so I thought. We were both professionals, both educated, both ambitious in our own ways. I worked in logistics management for a mid-sized distribution company. She was a freelance interior designer. We didn't have kids, her choice more than mine, but I'd accepted that a long time ago. I cooked, cleaned, paid bills, handled taxes, fixed the cars, managed our investments. She used to make dinner most nights, and while she wasn't a fan of housework, she'd keep things in order, handled our social calendar, and occasionally surprised me with things that made me feel appreciated. Little notes, small gifts, a smile that said, "I see you." That all stopped about 8 months ago. Slowly, like the fade of a dimmer switch. At first, I chalked it up to burnout. Her client list had been growing. A few months later, I noticed she stopped doing anything that wasn't directly related to herself. She'd pick up dinner for herself and leave nothing for me. Or she'd cook something elaborate for her Instagram, but wouldn't set a place for me at the table. The first few times, I told myself it was an oversight. But it wasn't. It became a pattern. Then one Friday night, I came home early, surprise Thai takeout in hand. She was in the living room, curled up in a blanket, watching some vapid reality show with headphones on. I set the food down on the kitchen counter and said, "I got your favorite." She barely looked up. I already ate. That wasn't new. What was new was the expression she gave me. This blank, tired look that said, "Why are you talking to me?" I felt something snap. Not violently. Not loudly. Just snap. Still, I held it in. I took my portion of food, sat down at the other end of the table, and ate in silence. A few days later, I asked her, genuinely, calmly, "Can we talk about what's been going on between us?" She didn't even pretend to be surprised. "What now?" she said flatly, not even turning away from her phone. "I don't know. Maybe the fact that we live like roommates? That you barely speak to me anymore unless you want something? That I feel like I'm walking on eggshells in my own house." That got her attention, but not the way I hoped. She turned to me, expression tight, voice clipped. "Do you ever stop to think maybe I'm tired of performing all the time? Tired of being expected to cook, smile, have sex, decorate, entertain, like I'm your personal geisha or something?" I blinked. "That's not what I'm not here to serve you," she said, cutting me off. There was no heat in her voice, just dismissal, like she'd rehearsed that line. I stood there, stunned, hand still resting on the back of a kitchen chair. I didn't say anything. I just looked at her. And she stared right back, like she was daring me to push back, like she was ready for a fight. But I didn't fight. I nodded once. "Okay." She seemed thrown for a second, just long enough for me to notice, but then she picked up her phone again and started scrolling. That was it. End of conversation. But something shifted in me that night. Not out of anger, not spite, not even pain, just clarity. That night, after she told me she wasn't here to serve me, I didn't sleep. Not because I was angry. I wasn't. Not really. I just lay there, staring at the ceiling, thinking. It wasn't the first time I'd felt dismissed or taken for granted, but it was the first time she said it out loud. Not passively. Not in a moment of heat. She meant it. She wanted me to know exactly where I stood. And that's when I realized something. If she was done serving me, then maybe I was done providing for her. No big declaration. No yelling. Just stop. The next morning, I didn't wake her up with coffee like I used to. I didn't remind her about her hair appointment. I didn't refill the gas tank in her car. I didn't preload the groceries into the fridge like I always did every Saturday morning before she even asked. I didn't do a damn thing. Sunday came and went. I didn't vacuum the house. Didn't fold her laundry. I cooked dinner, just for me, and ate quietly on the back patio while she browsed Pinterest inside. Monday morning, she texted me from her car. "Why is the tank empty? I told you I had that site consult across town." I replied, Didn't know I was still responsible for that. At work, I cleared the shared credit card of all automatic reloads. The Apple subscription she used for her design apps? Gone. The monthly skincare boxes she loved? Cancelled. I didn't touch her personal accounts, of course, but the shared account we used for joint expenses? That was mine again. Hers was never touched for the mortgage, anyway. That evening, she got home and marched straight into the kitchen. Did you cancel my subscriptions? I was rinsing a dish. I didn't look up. Yep. What the hell, Nathan? I shrugged. I figured since you're not here to serve me anymore, maybe I should stop working overtime to fund a lifestyle that doesn't include me. She stared at me, stunned. It was a calculated move. Not cruel. Just fair. I wasn't trying to be petty. I just wanted her to see the balance. She wanted autonomy? Great. She had it. No more carrying the invisible weight she never noticed I was holding up every single day. She stomped off, muttering something I didn't bother catching. But that week, it started to ripple. Her sister called. You guys okay? She told me you've been acting weird lately. Weird how? She said you're withdrawing. Like you're punishing her. I smiled, though she couldn't see it. Did she mention the part where she said she's not here to serve me? A pause. No, she didn't mention that. Later that night, I overheard her on the phone. Her voice was low, like she didn't want me to hear, but she wasn't exactly being subtle either. I swear, he's being so passive-aggressive. He's sulking like a child. Honestly, I thought he was more mature than this. There it was. The narrative was forming. She wasn't the one who changed. I was the one, withdrawing. Never mind what she said. Never mind the months of silent coldness and forgotten anniversaries. One night, she asked why I hadn't paid the housekeeper's invoice. I figured we didn't need her anymore. House is always a mess anyway. She narrowed her eyes. I'm too busy to do all of it myself. I know. So am I. We stared at each other. The next week, she posted a vague quote on her Instagram story. It's always the quiet ones who disappoint you most. A mutual friend messaged me that evening. Everything okay between you two? And that's when I realized something even more telling. People were starting to notice. But they weren't noticing her shift. They were noticing mine. That's the part that stung her. Because as long as I kept playing my part, the performance could go on. She could be the independent woman with the adoring husband who funded the backdrop. Now that I was pulling away, softly, silently, people were asking questions she couldn't answer without telling the whole story. And it was only getting started. By the middle of the third week, it stopped being between the two of us. That was the week her mother called me. Now, you have to understand, her mother, Judith, and I have always had a brittle peace. Civil, polite, but never warm. The kind of woman who could compliment your haircut and insult your masculinity in the same breath. She always thought her daughter married down. That I was too quiet, too practical, not ambitious enough for her little girl. So when she called me directly, breaking years of sticking to polite texts or birthday card signatures, I already knew it wasn't a friendly check-in. Nathan, she said, her voice dripping with practiced calm. I'm calling because I'm concerned. About what? About your marriage. About how my daughter says you've changed. She says you've become cold. I waited a beat. Did she also tell you she announced she's not here to serve me anymore? Silence. Then a scoffing laugh. Oh, Nathan. You men and your egos. Do you think marriage means a woman should be your maid? I think marriage means mutual care. Mutual contribution. If one person taps out, the other eventually does too. She said you canceled her cards. That's financial abuse, Nathan. I almost laughed. But I didn't. I canceled the shared cards, I said slowly. The ones I paid off every month. She still has her own. Judith paused. Well, it's just not a good look. People talk. Her clients notice when she's off. Her sister's worried. Even the women at the book club have been asking. So there it was. The uproar. Not because she was hurt. Not because she was suffering emotionally. But because her image, the curated, filtered, polished version of her life, was starting to unravel. People were asking questions, and that terrified her. I ended the call politely, but firmly. Judith, with all due respect, I think you should let your daughter speak for herself. That didn't go over well. But that same night, I got a message that surprised me. It was from her cousin, Elise. Hey, I'm sorry if this is crossing a line, but I see what's going on. And I just want you to know, not everyone's buying her version. I stared at that message for a while. Elise was the only member of her family who ever spoke to me like a person instead of a prop. She'd always been quietly observant, not one for drama or gossip. If she was reaching out, Things were breaking through the surface. I wrote back, "Appreciate you saying that. It means more than you know." The next few days, the fallout kept spreading. One of her clients called the house while she was out. I answered. The woman, an older, well-spoken event planner, paused when she realized it was me. "Oh, I was just trying to reach your wife. She's been a bit distracted lately. Everything all right?" I could have played dumb, but I didn't. "I think she's trying to figure out if she wants to be married to someone she doesn't feel obligated to support in any way." Another pause. "Well, that's unfortunate. I hope you both figure things out." She hung up quickly. I knew then that the whispers were no longer confined to family chats and girls' night gossip. Her professional world, the one she built on charm, polish, and poise, was seeing the cracks. And she didn't like that. That night, she confronted me. "You've made your point," she snapped, slamming her laptop closed. "Can you just go back to acting like a decent husband?" I looked up from my book. "What does that mean to you?" "You know what it means. Picking up the slack. Not acting like some passive-aggressive teenager." I nodded. "Interesting. So when you stop contributing, it's self-respect. When I stop, it's immaturity." She threw her hands up. "I told you I needed space. That I didn't want to be everything for you." "I never asked you to be everything," I said. "I just asked you to be something." Her mouth opened, closed. For once, she had no comeback. And that was when the real turning point hit. She didn't walk away. She sat down. That was new. Not out of submission, not to apologize, but because, for the first time, she didn't know how to spin it. She had pushed the narrative as far as she could. Now, people she expected to rally around her were hesitating. And I hadn't even done anything. That's what scared her the most. She built her image on grace, sacrifice, charm, generosity. But when she publicly declared she was done giving, and I quietly stopped too, it became obvious who she really was underneath. The image cracked. And all I had to do was let it. It was Elise who finally said the part out loud. We were both at a birthday dinner for one of my wife's mutual friends. A big group table. Laughter, wine, half-performed smiles, the usual. My wife was across from me, all dressed up, charming the people around her like nothing had changed. Like she hadn't spent the last 2 months treating me like a burden she was forced to drag along behind her. And people bought it. Of course they did. She was good at that. They saw the curated surface, poised, fashionable, interesting, endlessly tired from giving too much. The implication being, well, she must be the victim, right? Until Elise tilted her glass toward me and said, in that soft, neutral voice of hers, "He's the only one here who hasn't changed." A few heads turned. My wife's did too. "What's that supposed to mean?" she asked, trying to keep her tone light. Elise looked directly at her. "Just that. You act like he's the one who broke this. But anyone watching closely can see, it was you who quit first." There it was. Simple. Undeniable. My wife gave a strained laugh. "I didn't quit anything. I just stopped bending over backwards to meet everyone's expectations." Elise didn't blink. "You stopped participating in your marriage. That's not self-care. That's abandonment." Silence stretched out over the table. A few people glanced awkwardly at their forks. One guy on the end tried to laugh and change the subject. No one followed him. My wife stared at her cousin for a long beat, then got up and walked away without a word. That was the moment it changed. The social mask slipped. And suddenly, I wasn't the one people were watching. After dinner, I walked out early and headed home. Elise caught up to me in the parking lot. "She'll never forgive me for saying that," she said. "But someone had to." I nodded. "You didn't have to, though." She shrugged. "Maybe not. But I couldn't stand the way she weaponized your silence. Acting like your patience was proof you didn't care. That was what hit me hardest. My silence wasn't passive. It was deliberate. I'd spent weeks enduring the cold shoulder, the guilt trips, the selective storytelling, and I did it all without retaliation, without slinging mud. Because I thought, maybe, eventually, she'd see it for what it was. Turns out, she didn't. But others did. That weekend, she tried to take control of the story again. Posted a long, carefully filtered photo on social media with a caption about letting go of what doesn't nourish your soul. One of her old friends commented, "But didn't he buy the groceries, cook the meals, and pay the rent?" The comment stayed up for about 2 hours before it vanished. She never addressed it. The unraveling wasn't loud. It didn't happen in an explosion. It was slow. A drip feed of doubt in the minds of people who used to believe she was golden. Her friends stopped engaging. A few distanced themselves. A colleague pulled out of a shared project due to scheduling conflicts. And then came the worst part for her. Anyway, her mother turned. Judith showed up unannounced one morning as I was trimming hedges out front. I almost didn't recognize her. Less makeup than usual, less posturing. Just tired. I want to apologize, she said. I stood there, pruning shears in hand, blinking. She gestured vaguely. For interfering. For taking her side without asking what yours was. You don't have to do that, I said. I do, she replied. Because she's my daughter, yes. But also because I raised her. And maybe I didn't teach her how to see people clearly. I didn't say anything. Not right away. I didn't know what to say. She asked to stay with me for a few weeks, Judith continued. Said she needed space. I told her no. That got my attention. She was furious, Judith added. But I told her what she needs isn't space. It's accountability. And I won't enable her until she figures that out. She left after that. No hug. No dramatic moment of redemption. Just an older woman trying to fix something she knew she helped break. That night, my wife finally spoke to me. Really spoke. I didn't expect this, she said. Any of it. What exactly didn't you expect? She hesitated. That people would turn on me. That they'd side with you. I shook my head. They didn't turn on you. You exposed yourself. And they watched. She looked down. I felt like I was losing myself in this marriage. You didn't lose yourself, I said. You left yourself. You quit showing up. I thought if I stopped giving, maybe I'd see if you really wanted me. If you'd fight for me. I let out a quiet breath. You stopped giving, hoping I'd fight harder. I stopped giving, hoping you'd notice. And we both lost. She didn't cry. Didn't plead. She just sat there, finally understanding how far we'd drifted and how quiet the journey had been. And for the first time in months, I realized I didn't want to punish her. I didn't want to make her feel what I felt. I just wanted to be done measuring love by who gave more and who gave last. She moved into the guest room the next day. No drama. No confrontation. Just a quiet morning where she carried her robe, phone charger, and a stack of folded sweaters past me in the hallway like she was headed to do laundry. I didn't ask why. I already knew. We stopped speaking for the next 3 days. Not out of spite. Just silence. The kind you don't fill with small talk anymore because there's nothing left that feels small. Only the big things, and neither of us was ready to say them. On the 4th day, she knocked once on the doorframe of my office and stepped inside. I've been thinking, she said. I didn't look up. I was finalizing a project brief. I gave her a nod to go ahead. I can't fix this. I thought maybe if I just reset, if I gave you space, things would get better. But they're not. Because the truth is, I don't think I know how to be a wife. At least, not the kind you need. I set the laptop aside and leaned back. You don't know how to be a partner, I said. Not just a wife. You knew how to appear partnered. But when it required real sacrifice, consistency, humility, you pulled back. She nodded, slowly. And I kept showing up, I continued. Kept holding up both ends of the rope until my hands bled. I didn't say anything because I thought maybe you were tired. Maybe life was weighing on you. But you weren't tired. You were just done. You just didn't want to admit it out loud. She crossed her arms, not defensively, just holding herself. I didn't want to be the bad guy. You didn't need to be. You just needed to be honest. A beat passed. Then she asked the question I think she came in there to ask from the beginning. So, where does that leave us? It wasn't a simple question. But the answer had become one. It leaves us done. She didn't cry. She just stood there, swaying a little in the quiet, as if waiting for something to stop her from falling. But I wasn't going to catch her this time. She moved out a week later. Not far, just to a rented loft across town. She told everyone we were separating to focus on ourselves. I didn't bother correcting it. I didn't need to. People already knew. Her cousin. Her mother. Her clients. Even some of our friends who used to tilt toward her charm and charisma had grown quiet when they spoke to me now. Not pitying. Not gloating. Just respectful. That was all I ever wanted, really. Respect. Partnership. Someone who didn't just perform the role of wife, but lived it. Someone who didn't need to be reminded that a relationship isn't about roles at all. It's about reciprocity. Quiet, daily choices to keep showing up. I started reclaiming the house, one room at a time. Got rid of the gold-trimmed vases she insisted we needed. Rolled up the statement rug that she said completed the look, but always felt like walking on eggshells. I replaced the cold gray accent wall with a warm, soft green. Something that felt like peace. The last time we saw each other was at the signing. She looked thinner, maybe more stylish, maybe more fragile. It was hard to tell. She asked if I hated her. I said no. I learned from you. I said, that's not the same thing as hating. What did you learn? That loving someone doesn't mean dying on their behalf. Especially not when they've already walked away. She blinked fast, like she was trying not to cry. You know, she said, softly. I really did want to be the kind of woman who could hold it all together. Marriage, work, love, independence. You just didn't want to hold it with someone, I said. That was the difference. She left without another word. I didn't feel triumphant. There was no victory in that room. Just two people who'd let the best version of themselves slip away, one missed conversation at a time. But I walked out lighter. Not bitter. Just clear. I'm not the villain she tried to paint me as when the story started unraveling. I wasn't cold. I wasn't withholding. I was quiet. Yes, but only because yelling at someone who's already halfway out the door doesn't bring them back. It just exhausts you further. She told me she wouldn't serve me anymore. So I stopped providing for her. And when the silence settled, and the dust cleared, and the truth finally surfaced, it was never me who walked away first. I just happened to be the one who walked away last. And thank God I did.
Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments, and do not forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel.